You didn't plan it. You didn't sit down and make a strategy. There was no list of rules, no self-help tactic involved. You just stopped texting him first. Not because you wanted to punish him, not even because you lost interest, but because something inside you finally grew quiet. There was a shift, subtle but undeniable, a moment of stillness that said, no more. No more over-explaining, no more overreaching, no more making yourself the bridge just so he wouldn't notice the distance. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was a return to yourself. And while it may have looked like nothing from the outside, something extraordinary began to happen beneath the surface. Not just inside you, but inside him. See, the male psyche isn't wired to notice presence. It's wired to detect loss. He didn't really notice the effort you made when you asked how his day went, or the gentle good mornings you sent even when he didn't reply the day before. He didn't feel the weight you carried when you tried to keep the conversation alive, when you made space for his chaos, when you translated silence into compassion. But he notices now. Not because you said anything, but because you didn't. Carl Jung wrote that the things we fail to bring into consciousness return to us as fate. And your withdrawal is not silence, it is revelation. It is the moment when the emotional seesaw tips and he feels the weight of his own absence. At first, he might rationalize it. He'll say, you're just busy. He'll tell himself you're probably with friends or just being dramatic. He might even think he prefers the space. But something stirs in the background. Not a thought. A discomfort. His brain, accustomed to the rhythm of your care, your energy, your soft consistency, suddenly meets stillness. And the masculine brain does not like stillness it didn't choose. Because for weeks or months, or maybe even longer, you were a constant. Your attention was a gentle fire, not hot enough to demand anything, but warm enough to be missed once it's gone. Now the fire is gone. The screen is dark. And that quiet. It isn't peace. It's a vacuum. He checks his phone, rereads an older message, smiles at a meme you once sent, and for the first time, he feels the delay, not just in your texts, but in himself. That delay is the beginning. The brain doesn't like unanswered loops. It seeks resolution. When something breaks a known pattern, the nervous system activates. Where did she go? Did I lose her? Is she okay? But those aren't real questions. They're defenses. What he's actually facing is unfamiliar, because your silence didn't create the emptiness. It revealed it. Jung believed that the shadow, the part of us we suppress, is activated most powerfully through others. You were once a source of comfort. Now you are a mirror, and the reflection is uncomfortable. It shows him where he took too much, where he gave too little, where he mistook your consistency for weakness, where he confused your compassion with dependence. And now, the quiet is exposing every inch of it. You didn't slam the door. You didn't make a scene. You simply stopped extending your hand. And the place where your hand once reached? It now holds a question he can't answer, because he's never had to, until now. You didn't pull away with noise. You pulled away with stillness. And the stillness speaks. It echoes in the places where your energy used to live. It hums through the conversations he no longer has to respond to, through the space where your name used to glow softly on his phone. And though he won't admit it, maybe not even to himself, he feels it. Not just the missing texts, but the shift in power. Because without ever saying the words, you've stopped chasing. And in doing so, you've stopped orbiting. He was the center for so long, not because he earned it, but because you gave freely, because you believed that love meant consistency. That connection meant effort, that showing up first meant strength, not need. And now you've learned, not by reading it in a book, but by living it in your body, that not all effort is love. And not all silence is rejection. Some silence is restoration, a return to source, a slow, sacred remembering of everything you handed away in the name of keeping something alive that was never breathing on its own. Jung would say that what we withdraw our projection from, we begin to see clearly. And that's what's happening now. You're seeing clearly, not just him, but yourself. You see the moments where you texted to fill the gap, not because you needed to, but because the silence scared you. You see how you confused anxiety for chemistry, availability for affection, and his lack of initiation for mystery. And now you're not texting. Because you're no longer afraid of what might happen if you don't. You've stopped performing connection, and you've started choosing truth. And the truth is this: if you stop reaching out and the thread dies, you were the only one holding it all along. That truth isn't cold. It's clarifying. It doesn't hurt because it's mean. It hurts because it's honest. And that honesty doesn't just free you. It shakes him. Because now, without your signal, his mind begins to wander, then loop, then spiral. It's not just about you not texting. It's about him no longer being able to count on the rhythm you gave so generously. He wonders if something's wrong. He scrolls through your stories. He considers reaching out. But the problem is, he never learned how. He never had to. You were the rhythm. You were the current. He just floated. Now that current is gone, and he's left in still waters, unsure how to swim. This is the moment the shadow grows loud. The voice inside him that says, "Why doesn't she want me anymore? What did I do? Was I not enough?" And he may try to override it with ego. She's being dramatic. She's probably talking to someone else. She'll come back. But underneath the bravado, the unconscious trembles, because he senses what his conscious mind won't yet name. You've shifted from needing him to needing yourself. And when a woman begins to source her energy inward, when she stops asking to be chosen and begins choosing herself, she becomes unfamiliar. No longer the giver, no longer the pursuer, no longer the fallback. And unfamiliar things cannot be controlled. So now, he's left with a choice he never had to make before: reach or retreat, rise or disappear, reveal or remain protected. And here you are, not waiting, not punishing, just existing, fully, quietly, unapologetically. And that existence, untethered and whole, is the most powerful text he'll never receive. He may not tell anyone, not his friends, not even himself. But something feels different now. The silence unsettles him. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. But it shifts the air around him, like something's missing, and he can't quite name what it is, because the absence of your message doesn't feel like a break. It feels like a boundary, a quiet door that gently closed, without slamming. And what lingers on the other side isn't resentment. It's something far more powerful: wholeness. See, he expected you to return, that you'd eventually give in, text again, break the pause, because that's what always happened before. He's counting on your softness to override your self-respect. But this time, it doesn't, because this time, you're not just silent, you're centered. You've returned to your own energy, and in that return, something unshakable was born. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And what once felt like fate, you texting, you chasing, you keeping the connection alive, was never fate. It was conditioning. It was fear. It was the part of you that believed love required sacrifice. Now you know better. Now you know love cannot be sustained by one hand reaching across a gap, while the other remains still, so you've stopped reaching. And now, the gap shows itself for what it truly is. Not a misunderstanding, but a mismatch. He feels the distance, but he doesn't understand the cost of what you used to give, because he never had to pay it. And that's the thing about emotional labor. It's invisible until it's gone. Now he's faced with the full weight of what he never nurtured, the texts he didn't reply to, the effort he dismissed as just who you are, the bond he mistook for permanence. And maybe he thinks about reaching out. Maybe he types a message and deletes it. Maybe he watches your story, waiting for a sign that it's safe to come back. But here's what's different now. You're not waiting for his return. You're not refreshing the screen. You're not checking the time. You're living, fully, softly, firmly. Because the love you were once willing to pour into him, you're now pouring into yourself. Not because you've given up on connection, but because you've realigned your standard for it. You no longer text first, not to be chased, but because you no longer need to be chosen to feel whole. And that shift? It rewrites the entire script, because your silence is not absence, it is selection. It says, I am available to love, but not at the cost of myself. I will open my heart, but not to someone who only knocks when he's lonely. I will respond to presence, not to ghosts in between disappearances. And if he truly sees you, not the version who overextends, but the one who has returned home to herself, he will reach not from panic, not from ego, but from recognition. Recognition that this isn't about games, it's about growth. That the woman he once texted at his convenience has become the woman he must now meet with intention. And if he doesn't, if the silence remains, then that too is your answer. Not a rejection, a redirection. Because you didn't lose anything by letting the pattern end. You gained your power back. And that is the secret SoulSync has whispered all along. That a woman who stops texting first isn't withdrawing. She's remembering who she is, what she deserves, and how to wait, not passively, but purposefully, for the kind of love that doesn't need chasing to stay alive. If this message touched something in you, a memory, a truth, a quiet strength, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a woman who's learning to choose herself too. Subscribe for more content that honors your growth, your boundaries, your becoming. And leave a comment below, because your voice might be the very mirror someone else needs to hear.